This is a regular shop in India that is found in various parts of every village, town and city of the country. It is full of plastics that can be used only once but will take decades to disintegrate, otherwise known as single-use plastic. In August 2021, India banned 19 single-use plastic items through an amendment to the Plastic Waste Management Rules 2016. For the first time in the country, these selected items were also defined as plastic items intended to be used once for the same purpose before being disposed of or recycled. With this, India has joined a list of more than 170 countries that have already banned single-use plastics. Single-use plastics may be unnecessary and problematic, adding to the issue of plastic menace. Banning and implementing these bans on single-use plastics can contribute in addressing the issue of plastic pollution. Hi, my name is Siddharth and I work as a program manager in the Municipal Solid Waste and Circular Economy Unit at the Center for Science and Environment. The Indian government prohibited the manufacture, import, stocking, distribution, sale and use of 19 identified single-use plastic items on the basis of utility, littering potential, application and thickness of the plastic. This includes plastic cutlery, crockery, plastic carry bags of less than 120 microns, nonwoven carry bags of less than 75 GSM and plastic banners of less than 100 microns. Apart from single-use plastic cutlery like straws, spoons, knives and crockery like plates, cups and glasses. However, we use many more single-use plastic items than the ones considered for the ban. For instance, mineral water bottles, beverage bottles, Tetra packs, multi-layered packaging, etc. These items were not covered in the single-use plastic ban imposed by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Moreover, the definition of single-use plastic does not identify, acknowledge or differentiate between problematic, unnecessary and non-recyclable plastic. One yardstick that should be considered for identifying plastics for the ban is the non-recyclability of plastics. CSE has been advocating for banning non-recyclable plastic for the last 8 years. The question we are asking is why do we allow the manufacturing of plastic that cannot be recycled and can only be sent to the dump sites in our cities? We were very keen to understand the methodology of the ban and also to understand why some items were kept in the ambit of the ban while others that were equally or more problematic were kept out of its purview. We found that the ban was based on a study conducted by the Department of Chemicals and Petrochemicals under the aegis of the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. The study considers 40 single-use plastic items and marks them on the basis of 2 parameters and 10 sub-parameters. For single-use plastic items to be eligible for the ban, the utility index had to be low, while the environmental impact index had to be high. After carefully studying the methodology of the ban, we found that the SUP ban did not have a benchmark for items considered for the ban. The ban also failed to provide a level playing field for the MSMEs and the FMCGs. For instance, most of the items that were considered for the ban were manufactured by the MSME sector, while the ones manufactured by the FMCG companies were not considered. The rationale provided by the ministry was that the FMCG companies will get collection and recycling targets for all the single-use plastic items used for packaging under the new Extended Producer's Responsibility regime introduced in India in 2022. The CPCB issued a comprehensive action plan. It was divided into 4 different parts. Part A was dedicated to supply-side interventions. Under this part, directions were issued to all leading petrochemical companies like IOCL, ONGC and Reliance to not supply raw materials to industries engaged in production of banned single-use plastic items. Part B was dedicated to demand-side interventions. Under this part, directions were issued to 18 plastic raw material manufacturers for phasing out single-use plastic items. A total of 57 entities were issued directions, including 9 sellers of single-use plastic items and 30 e-commerce sites. Part C was dedicated to creating an enabling environment for phasing out single-use plastic. This part of the module focused on organizing workshops for MSMEs to facilitate the transition, and Part D was dedicated to managing legacy single-use plastic. This part was focused on developing guidance documents for various processing technologies available in the Indian market. The monitoring module is an opaque system that promises public data but does not provide access to the portal. CPCB, in its document explaining the utility of the monitoring module, stated that the following information will be made publicly available: district-wise inventory of single-use plastic producers, sellers, and users, status of compliance with single-use plastic ban timelines, details of field inspections and action taken, and compliance status of all the states. None of this information is available in the public domain as we speak. CPCB also released a grievance redressal application. This application has made data for complaints and their redressal status public. The complaints received and redressed were tracked from the month of September 2022 to March 2023 by the researchers at CSE. It was observed that the number of complaints received on the application was decreasing as the months passed. The rise in the number of complaints between September and November 2022 was 40%. However, between January and March 2023, the rise in the number of cases was just 3%, indicating that the app has failed to garner responses from citizens due to poor awareness about the ban as well as the app itself. The most number of complaints, that is 1,954, were received against single-use plastic cutlery items. This was followed by 1,530 complaints against carry bags less than 120 microns. The highest recorded redressal rate for the complaints registered was 25.3% in the month of January 2023. The low redressal rate points to laxity of authorities' seriousness in implementation of the ban. Complaints were received from a total of 137 cities. 60% of the cities failed to redress even a single complaint. Only 4 cities redressed 100% of the complaints received. The current SUP ban in the country addresses only 3% of all the primary plastic produced in the country. While various estimates suggest that SUP makes almost 40 to 60% of the total primary production of plastics. There are multiple ways to make India single-use plastic free. Firstly, we have to enforce the existing laws and especially strengthen the single-use plastic ban by populating the list and adding unnecessary, problematic and non-recyclable plastic to this list. There should be mandatory public disclosure at regular intervals to inform the people about the EC levied by the state pollution control boards and the pollution control committees. Most importantly, we need to stop the micron business. Carry bags, non-woven bags, and PVC banners have to be phased out because of multiple issues like collection and challenges in non-recyclability. There is a need to make it possible for new problematic, unnecessary, and non-recyclable plastic, which are not covered in the existing ban, to be included through a mechanism of revising the ban at regular intervals. And finally, invest in the alternative market by creating avenues like subsidies and reduced tax rates for alternatives derived from bio-based products like bamboo.